What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with another tune from the We Save Us playlist. Thank you again to Kim, and again to Yvonne and Michaela for adding a couple tunes. And this one is from the Lords of the New Church, a group I have not heard of, from a 1982 more or less self-titled album, which is to say I think the album doesn't have the definitive article "the" at the front of it. But yeah, it's from 1982, and the track is called Open Your Eyes. And Kim, her note for this one was a quote from the track, which is something like, "See the lies right in front of you." And she quoted a tune from Tears for Fears' 2004 Everybody Loves a Happy Ending. And again, just making sure I don't slightly misquote it. But yes, it's from the song Closest Thing to Heaven, and it is "Look the World Right in the Eye." So yes, this suggests an unflinching acknowledgement of dishonestry, sophistry, misdirection, propaganda, the idea that governments in general, and again, I try not to get overly political on this channel, though in some punk rock reactions and certainly in this playlist, it is part and parcel to what these songs are about, and I feel like it would be remiss of me if I didn't mention that, yes, politicians everywhere and in all eras, they spin things, they speak half-truths, sometimes they outright lie, or indeed toe the official line, even when evidence would suggest that there is a more honest appraisal or description of whatever is happening. But to be fair, the regime in charge of the US federal government right now is as craven, as absurd, as disingenuous as any I have seen in my lifetime. They don't answer questions directly. When they do address the substance of the question, it is almost entirely with finger-pointing, whataboutism, and outright propaganda, even, again, in the face of empirical evidence that anyone who cares to look into the issue can see. Nothing is ever conceded, everything is blamed on others, and there is a complete and immoral approach to transparency, despite, of course, in a very Orwellian up is down, 2 + 2 = 5 manner of this regime suggesting, oh, we're the most transparent in history. So again, politicians everywhere and in all eras play fast and loose with the truth, but the degree to which this is happening now right in front of our noses is exceptional by any means and reprehensible by any decent standard. So in that regard, I feel like this is an especially important tune in this playlist at this time and in this given context. So once again, all people are welcome here, but of course, as I've said, I feel like if we are on different ends of the spectrum, this is the time when we need to be honest, when we need to hear what others are saying. And again, in this context, in this country, it feels like at the very top, that is the precise opposite of what is happening. So in any case, let's give it a listen. This is from the Lords of the New Church, a song called Open Your Eyes from the Lords of the New Church album 1982, and away we go.
Video games train the kids for war. Only she can have fashion stores. Not for this dumb jam. Places filled where the rich still run. Assassination politics. Violence rules within our nation's midst. Well, ignorance is their power too. They only know what they want you to know. But television cannot lie. Controlling media with smoke screen eyes. Nuclear politicians' picture show. The actors' lies and what the blind don't know. Open your eyes, see the lies right in front of you. Open your eyes, see the lies right in front of you. Open your eyes, see the lies right in front of you. metaphor. So we forget just how bad things are. You taste the fear when you're all alone. They're gonna get you when you're on your own. The silence of conspiracy started on and on to all apathy. You gotta wake up from your sleep, 'cause we can hear it at 6 feet deep. Open your eyes, see the lights right in front of you. Open your eyes, see the lights right in front of you. Open your eyes, see the lights right in front of you. Open your eyes.
Oh, brilliant, fantastic, curious about this group after that one. So I'll start lyrically. It is very much like a tune I wouldn't be surprised to hear lyrically if it were a punk rock song. Like, it really has an approach that's like, look, apathy is death. If we don't stand up for the truth, if we don't resist this propaganda, if we just kind of go along with it, we're sealing our fate. We'll be 6 feet deep, and it will be the beginning of the end. It's also speaking to the way, like, and the TV can't lie, which, of course, like, in a modern age, we'll extrapolate that to social media, where, people go seek out their preferred narratives, and sometimes they see official statements and, like, well, it's got to be true. You couldn't say it if it wasn't true, right? So, yes, whether it's, like, partisan narrative fishing, where you're just looking for confirmations and you're ignoring or even outright dismissing out of hand disconfirmations, or whether it's, again, the idea that, like, well, the official spokesperson, or, again, the official Twitter account or X account, I hate saying that, but yes, they couldn't, like, write something if it wasn't true, right? So it must be true what they're saying. So the idea of people just falling into just kind of nodding their head and, like, okay, like, I'm just going to go about my business and I'm not going to worry about the way that, what I can see out there seems to be very different from what they're saying from the podium, then, we're already part of the problem. You can't be neutral on a moving train, as Mr. Howard Zinn once said. And of course, I was actually thinking not only of that, but I was thinking of Chomsky manufacturing consent, controlling the media, controlling the narrative, sort of like banning, or at least trying to ban, like, journalists and media outlets that don't just toe the company line, which, again, in the present moment and in this place and time, is something that is more of a tangible reality than has been the case. And again, in different places and in U.S. history, of course, there are administrations that have, sort of taken a negative line on those who try to contradict the official line. But this moment in time, this regime has taken it to a level that I've not seen in my lifetime. And in that regard, again, the lyrics, I think, are very incisive, but also, cleverly written. I enjoy the sonics to a great degree. I was already going to say the bass was grooving away for a lot of the track, And before we even get to the section with the saxophone, I'll say that I enjoyed the way the bass was mixed with that almost like harpsichord, like baroque type keyboard line at the top of the tune. And then, of course, we do get to that solo section where the saxophone just comes out of nowhere with a lot of swagger and attitude and just takes over. But in that moment, the bass kind of went double time and it was very dynamic and energetic. So I enjoy the balance of that section. Then on the other side of that, we get some guitar with a bit of edge to it, a bit of that like 80s epic quality. So yeah, like keyboard sounds very compelling, bass very compelling, brass very compelling, and indeed it wasn't just the saxophone. Like toward the end of the tune, there were like trumpets or some other brass that was flourishing as well. So like a really well composed tune, top track, absolutely love it. Let me know what you think, and I will see you for the next one. And I have to say, we're now past the halfway point of the We Save Us playlist, so my plan is to try to finish it with a day or so to spare before next weekend. So let me know what you think, and I will see you for the next one. Peace.